We finished talking about lethargy and sleepiness, restlessness and regret. Okay. Is it clear about the four opponent powers to remedy regret? Yeah, and to purify? That's something that is a practice that's quite important that we do every day, actually, not only to purify things from previous lives, but to keep on top of the actions we've done in this life. Yeah. And if we do purification regularly like this, then not only spiritually, but psychologically, we don't carry a lot of things around with us, which is nice, because we often meet people who, as they age, stockpile all the emotional hurts that they've experienced, all the feelings of injustice that they've experienced, and it weighs on them as they just go about their daily life. In other words, the past is kind of always shadowing them. So it's very helpful to do purification. Let me just talk about this a bit more, okay? So we do it by means of the four opponent powers. So although we are purifying our own past misdeeds, it also functions to purify however we have concretized an experience that happened to us. Okay? So let me give examples of both things. So, let's say we lied, or anybody here who's never lied? How about never talked behind somebody's back? Or said mean words to somebody? Yeah. So these things are pretty regular occurrences. You can only imagine what we've done in countless beginningless lifetimes, with our speech. Okay, so the first thing is to develop regret, not guilt, but regret. Okay, and then the second step, I call it restore the relationship. In other words, when we did something harmful to somebody, we had a negative intention towards them. And to really purify, we have to let go of that negative intention. Yeah, that motivated our misdeed. So if we were angry at somebody, we have to really cultivate love or fortitude, something to reverse that anger. Yeah, because if we're still holding anger, how can we have genuine regret? Yeah, do you see the link there? If we're still saying, I'm so ticked off for what this guy did, and I retaliated, and I regret I retaliated, but I'm so mad at that guy that, if I could retaliate again, I would, or I'm so mad, I'm glad I really hurt them, even though I kind of regret hurting them too. So you see, we have to really change our attitude towards whoever it was that we, did our negative action. So in terms of other living beings who we may have hurt, then we try and generate love and compassion and bodhicitta. In terms of our spiritual mentors and the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, when we've done negative actions towards them, then we cultivate an attitude of respect and of taking refuge. Okay? And so here, this second point is quite important because it really makes us change our attitude. Yeah. And that's very important for purifying. Yeah. Because if we don't change our attitude, that's the link that makes us stockpile all this hurt, all this negativity, all this anger year after year after year. Okay. Because we still hold that emotion. Yeah. Have you had meditation sessions where everything's going along very nicely, you're calm, and then you think of somebody who hurt you, who did something you didn't like many years ago, and you get angry? You're sitting there here in this room with nice people. Nobody's doing anything to you. And all of a sudden, you're raging, furious. Yeah, had that experience? Yeah. So we can see that unless we really work with that attitude or emotion that we had that made us do the negativity, then we really can't release it and regret it properly. Okay? So this involves doing some really deep work in our practice. Yeah, because we hold on to certain ideas very strongly. Okay. I always joke, but it's not really a joke, that some of the first words we learn as children in America is, "It's not fair." Yeah? Do you remember saying that regarding your siblings? I guess if you're an only child, you didn't have that. But maybe, you did it about the kids across the street. Their parents let them do something, and your parents didn't let you do the same thing. Yeah. We always say, "It's not fair." And we use the idea of fairness to validate our anger and resentment and sense of betrayal. Okay, ringing a bell somewhere? And so then we hold on to those emotions. And like I said, the concept, the reason justifying it is, I have been mistreated. And it wasn't fair the way other people mistreated me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you look inside, can you think of many instances in your past where you weren't treated fairly by other people? Yeah, there's the thing of they took advantage of me, or they harmed me, they stole my stuff, they criticized me, they betrayed my trust. All of this we put in the concept under the thing of, it's not fair, it's unjust. I shouldn't have to experience these things in life. I should only experience happiness and joy. Yeah, everything else is unfair. Yeah? I don't know about you, but when I look inside, there's this kind of sneaky way of thinking. Yeah, according to my self-centered rules of the universe. Yeah, I should only experience what's nice, and everything else is unfair and unjust, because I'm just little old me who never harms anybody, who never mistreats anybody. And so all this stuff I get from other people is uncalled for and unfair. Okay? So it's as if we do not believe in karma. Yeah. We'll say, oh, yes, in previous lives I've done negative deeds. Yeah. And oh, yes, that will ripen in my misery this life. But as soon as we experience misery in this life, do we think that's the result of our own negative actions in the past? No, it's somebody else's fault and they're not treating me fairly. Okay. And then we get really tangled up. But when I was a kid, I got treated really unfairly. Maybe I was abused as a child or something happened. Are you saying that I deserve that? That it's fair that I got treated like that? That it's okay that people abuse other people? No, we're not saying that. Yeah, of course it's not okay when one person abuses another. And we're not saying that people deserve to suffer either. Okay, but what we are saying is when we experience misery, it has something to do with our own actions. In the similar way to when we have happiness, it has something to do with our own actions too. Okay, we seldom think about that. Yeah, when we're unhappy, or we're sick, one of our first questions is, why me? When you're happy, do you ever say, why me? No, we say, give me more. We never say, why me? Yeah, but when we're miserable, why me? Because it's unfair. Okay. So it's really, we really need to do some serious meditation here on karma and really learning to link our own actions with the results that we experience. And again, it doesn't mean that we're being rewarded or punished by our previous actions. It simply means that we are experiencing the results. Okay? You look in the garden and there's these really big sunflowers there. Yeah. What kind of seeds were planted to grow that big sunflower? Yeah. Sunflower seeds, right? Yeah. Did we plant rose seeds there or daisy seeds there? Or tomato seeds? No. Yeah, because rosies and daisies. Yeah, roses and daisies grow from their own seeds. Yeah, so do sunflowers. They're not rewards. They're not punishments. They're just a result. Okay? So, when we experience happiness and good conditions, like we have right now, to think this is a result of my own virtuous actions in previous lives, earlier in this life. Yeah, if I like this result, yeah, then I need to create more virtue and keep creating more virtue. Yeah. If we experience misery, then that's a result of our non-virtuous actions. And if we don't like the result, we need to stop creating the cause. Okay. Now, we actually experience a lot of good conditions, don't we? But do we really recognize our good conditions? Do we really appreciate them? Yeah. In the shower in my cabin, it's made out of tile. There's one little spot where the tile got damaged. What do you notice when you look at the bottom of the shower? That one little spot that's this big. All the rest of the tile that's laid beautifully, you ignore. Okay? So it's similar in our lives. Everything that is going well. We had lunch. My goodness. Okay? All these things that are going well, we just take for granted instead of really thinking that these are a result of our own virtuous actions, and therefore encouraging ourselves to keep on doing things that are beneficial like that. Okay, so back to the purification. First one is regret. Second one is changing our relationship with whoever it was that we harmed. Okay. Now, keeping with this for a minute, somebody may have harmed us a lot, and maybe we didn't retaliate directly to them, but we're holding on to a grudge. We're holding on to an anger, to a feeling of betrayal, to a feeling of, resentment. But then we say, but they did that to me. How can I purify their action and let what they did to me go? Because it's what they did, and karma is about purifying what I did. But if we're holding anger, resentment, ill will, malice, those are mental actions, that we've developed in our own mind. We need to purify those. So if somebody harmed us, what we need to purify is our response to their harm. What they did is over and done with. Okay? Our fear, anxiety, paranoia, resentment, all of that is in our mind, and that needs to be purified. Okay? And if we do that, then it helps us forgive the people who harmed us. And it helps us release the tension we have from holding on to things that happened to us or were done to us in the past. Okay. And that's very important in order to be relaxed and happy now, and in order to create virtuous actions now and in the future. Is this making some sense to you? Because it's so easy to think about things in the past and really concretize them in our mind and hold on to them and be so miserable because of it. I just got an email from somebody who is experiencing, there's a situation going on where this person lives and people are talking behind their back and criticizing her and attacking her and stuff like that for things that she's not doing wrong, but they're being quite insulting and so on. And I once lived in that situation in that country where there's a certain mentality, and I know how it is. And I remember how they used to make fun of me. And I remember how some people just delighted in like trying to humiliate me or put me down or whatever. Okay? But I can see now that I've let that go. I understand what those people did. I understand what the person who wrote me the email is going through. But in my heart, there's just much more, well, this is the way it is in some cultures. Yeah, I'm talking more about gender dynamics here and men putting women down, and in some cultures, that's just the way it is. And I don't like it, but I don't want to carry around a lot of resentment my whole life about this. Yeah. So, so to bring yourself to an attitude where you can understand something, yeah, and forgive the people. And also know that if you're in that situation again, you can act and feel differently than you did before. Yeah, because I think if I were in that situation again, and those people spoke to me the way they used to, I don't think I'd respond the way I did 30 years ago. I think I would glare. Yeah. And I would say, don't talk to me like that. Yeah, instead of just feeling like, yeah, what can I do? So anyway, I think trying to get a point across here, yeah. So then the third thing in purification is doing some kind of remedial action. So if you're doing the prostrations to the 35 Buddhas, then saying the name and prostrating to each of the Buddhas, that's the remedial action. If you're doing Vajrasattva practice, reciting the Vajrasattva mantra is your remedial action. You can also volunteer at a charity, make offerings, sponsor the publication of Dharma books. There's so many virtuous activities that you can do that can be the remedial behavior. Okay? And then the fourth point is making a determination not to do it again. Okay, so there are some things we've done, I don't know about you, that where I feel so fed up with myself that I can really truly say, I will not do that again. Yeah. But then there's other things where I'm not so disciplined, and where an emotion will come up and I might act it out. And so with those things, it's better to, say, well, for the next week, I'll be very careful about that one. Give yourself something doable. Okay? So those four are the four opponent powers for purifying negative karma. And like I said, we can also use them to release any negative emotions we may have had towards regarding events that other people did to us that we didn't have control over. So in the Tibetan tradition, at the beginning of our Dharma practice, and actually, like I said, throughout our Dharma practice, we do purification. But at the beginning, very often our teachers have us do 100,000 prostrations or 100,000 Vajrasattva mantras or 100,000 taking refuge. There's several practices where you do 100,000 of them, together with the four opponent powers to purify. Okay. And when people say, why 100,000? The answer is, it's an opportunity to do one with full sincerity and full concentration. Okay. Now, the fifth of the five hindrances is deluded doubt. Okay. So doubt in general is indecisiveness. Okay. So some doubt involves seeking answers. It involves being curious about something. Yeah, I don't fully understand this. I doubt how it works. I want to learn more. That is not the deluded doubt we're speaking about here. Okay? So that's a sense of curiosity, which is actually something that propels us in our practice and helps us to learn. Okay? Another kind of doubt is where our mind kind of spins around. Yeah, like, I don't know, that doesn't really make sense. How does that work? I can't accept that. Why do they say like this? This, oh, I don't know. Da, 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 da. And, you know, should I do this? Should I do that? Okay, so there's doubt that comes in our regular life, and then there's doubt that comes in our Dharma life. Okay? So doubt in our regular life is, shall I move to this city or that city? Shall I take this job or that? Shall I get this degree or that degree? Yeah. Shall I keep going out with this person or shall I break off the relationship? Should I buy Cheerios or should I buy granola? Yeah. Should I, go on a vegetarian diet or should I go on some other, these kinds of things full of doubts. Yeah. And sometimes we just go around, some of them we just solve the problem quickly. And others of them in our life, we go round. And and we kind of drive ourselves crazy. How long do you really want to think of Cheerios versus granola? Yeah. Okay. But we can go on a long time about which job to take or where to move or what to do in a relationship and make ourselves so confused. Okay. So that kind of doubt is not very helpful. Yeah. We see sometimes people have that doubt regarding ordination. Yeah, they meet the Dharma, they love the Dharma, they want to ordain, but they also want to have a relationship. And when you ordain, you're celibate. Do I want to ordain? Do I want to have a relationship? Well, I want to ordain. Yeah, but I want to have a relationship too. So which one do I want? Which one's more important? And you spend, some people spend months and years about this. Yeah. We have somebody at the Abbey, because we do skits from time to time, did a skit about turkeys right before Thanksgiving. Okay? So the turkey is sitting on the fence. Should I jump on that side of the fence? Should I jump on that side of the fence? I don't know. I like that side, but I also like this. And meanwhile, Thanksgiving is approaching. And you're just sitting there on the fence, exposed. Okay. So, this is not the way we want to live our life, really, And I usually say when people get very tight about some kind of decision, like should I ordain or shouldn't I, or should I do this job or another one, or should I marry this person or another one? Oh my goodness. One time somebody came to me in Malaysia and said, I've been going out with this guy and should I marry him? And I said, I don't know. What do you think? And she said, well, such and such Lama came and he said I should marry the guy. And then another Lama came and he said I shouldn't marry him. So what do you think? Okay, time to change the subject, No way could I answer that question. Yeah. And anyway, I wouldn't want to be responsible for anybody's marriage. So, okay. But when we're driving ourselves crazy over some kind of decision, that kind of doubt, what I recommend is you just leave it aside and focus on developing your Dharma practice right now. That's all. Just focus on your life right now, being a good human being, developing your Dharma practice, and then things will become clear about whether you should move here or do that or, this or the other kind of thing. Okay? Because when we work ourselves up into, some tension about it, because I want to do both things and I can't. So what am I going to do? It's like, do you think you can think clearly and make any kind of reasonable decision in that kind of frame of mind? Impossible. Okay. So just leave the decision alone. You can figure out who you're going to marry later. Yeah. Just build a good life right now. Okay. Then there's another kind of doubt that pertains to our Dharma practice. Yeah. So are things empty of inherent existence, or do they have some inherent existence? Yeah. Are things really subtly impermanent, changing moment by moment? Or is the object itself permanent, but the situation it's in changes? Like I'm a permanent person, but the situation I'm in changes. How do things really exist? Is it possible to develop compassion for everybody? Yeah. For every single member of the current administration, for every single Democrat or Republican in Congress, is it possible to develop compassion? Yeah, and then you get all confused about that because, well, actually, I don't want to develop compassion towards everybody. Some of them are just big jerks, And then you get yourself all tangled up in that. Yeah, oh, they're a big jerk, but, I really want to develop compassion. Yeah, but how can I develop compassion for people who are jerks? But everybody should have compassion for me. Okay, so this is the problem with doubt and how it acts as a hindrance in our meditation. It just consumes so much time and energy, doesn't it? And it gets us absolutely nowhere. So in, I think it was maybe the Chinese tradition, they talked about three foremost kinds of doubt. Okay, so doubt in ourselves, and this is all in terms of our Buddhist practice. So this prevents us from trying. So we think, I'm not capable of this. I'm not intelligent enough to understand the scriptures. I'm too restless to sit and meditate. Yeah. So all sorts of denigrating thoughts about ourselves. So this is a kind of doubt, So we don't even try. Because, can I really accomplish something? I mean, come on. Yeah. So, rather than try, we just give up before we try. Do you do that in some areas of your life? You don't want to risk failure, so you don't try. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to observe. I once asked somebody who worked at a university or was friends with somebody who worked with the university, and their position was to discern who got admitted to a graduate program and who didn't. And I said, what criteria do you use? And this was in a science field, you know? And the criteria that the person used for whether to, one of them, criteria to accept somebody into the graduate program was, how do they deal with failure? Isn't that interesting? Not how often are they successful, and can they bring in a lot of money for the department, and can they bring a good reputation to the department, and will they succeed? But how do they deal with failure? Because we all fail at one time or another, don't we? We all fail. So how do we deal with failure? Do we fail once and then we just don't try again because we don't want to risk failure again? Yeah, that kind of person is not going to get admitted to the graduate program because they need people who are going to take risks and be creative when they're doing scientific research. Not somebody who's only going to research what they think they can be successful with. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it really made me stop and think, you know, how much do I not do something because I'm afraid of failing and looking bad? So how much do I shoot myself in my own foot? Okay, so that's that first kind of doubt, the doubt that prevents us from trying. Second kind of doubt is doubt in our spiritual mentor. And this arises from only looking at their superficial characteristics with a judgmental attitude. Like, the text says this, but my teacher said that, so my teacher must be wrong. Yeah? And we have a very strong idea because the text said this, and there's only got to be one right answer. Every text has got to say the same thing with that one right answer, and my teacher has a different opinion, so my teacher must be wrong. Actually, once you start studying, you realize that there's a whole lot of different answers for a question. Okay? But at the beginning, it's like, I just want to know the one right answer. So, we just think, you know, my teacher doesn't understand anything. They don't know what they're talking about. This kind of thing. Yeah. So then how am I going to gain anything from listening to their teachings? Yeah. So what they commented on in this text is that considering ourselves wise enough to evaluate our spiritual mentor's practice, we are blind to our own arrogance. That goes for actually evaluating anybody's spiritual practice, as if I can tell wherever anybody's at. So to remedy that, Nagarjuna recommends that we think of gold in a smelly pouch. Okay, if you want the gold, you have to take the pouch too. Okay, so you can either dwell on the pouch or you can dwell on the gold. So you can dwell on, you know, what you consider your teacher's faults, or you can dwell on their good qualities and learn what you can from them. Okay. So rather than focus on the pouch, we should direct our interest to the gold inside. Okay, then the third kind of doubt, so this is from the Chinese text, is doubt in the Dharma. And it makes us wonder whether Buddhahood and the path to attain it actually exist. Okay, so, are sentient beings inherently, intrinsically self-centered? Is it possible to overcome self-centeredness? Or are we hardwired to always take care of ourselves first? Okay, so we get stuck thinking about that. Is it possible? Because, science says, I have this amygdala, and my amygdala does all these things whether I want it to do it or not. So how is it actually possible for me to cherish others more than myself? Yeah. But then we see actions where people really do cherish others more than themselves. But then we go, but our amygdala always makes us look out for ourselves. So, but then this happens. So which is it? Yeah, so we develop a lot of doubt. Yeah. And as a result, then we don't practice. So what is helpful in this kind of situation is to just step back, practice what we can, increase our respect for the teachings, and, make an effort to understand topics that we really haven't understood yet, and to have an open mind when doing something. Okay? So not having a really rigid mind, like, okay, it's either the Buddha or my amygdala, Yeah, one of them's got to be true, and the other one's absolutely wrong. But I can't decide which one it is. Try and have a more open mind, okay? Yeah, your amygdala has some function, but, we aren't just our brain. And our brain, our amygdala doesn't go on with us to our future lives. And our extremely subtle mind is not governed by our amygdala. And anyway, who can spell amygdala? Okay. So to try and, again, open our mind, relax our mind a bit. Okay, then here's more advice from Nagarjuna, from his commentary on the Great Prajnaparamita. Just as when a person stands at a fork in the road and is so confused by doubt that he goes nowhere at all, when you seek realizations of the true character of phenomena, doubt acts in just the same way. Yeah? So you're standing at a crossroad and you can't make a decision, and you don't think that standing there and doing nothing is making a decision and taking up a lot of time and energy. So you just stand there. Yeah. So he's saying, when we're really investigating the nature of reality, if we just are immobilized and don't try and learn anything because we have so much indecision about it, then we're going to stand at that fork in the road for a really long time and not develop any wisdom. Because you remain doubtful, you don't diligently seek to realize the true character of phenomena. This doubt comes forth from confusion. Among all the detrimental mental factors, it is the worst. Yeah, because it keeps us stuck. It's like trying to sew with a two-pointed needle. Yeah. Although you may possess doubts while abiding in the world, you should still accord with the sublime and virtuous Dharma. Just as when you contemplate a fork in the road, you should follow the path which is most beneficial. So remember I said that in this series, His Holiness really wanted information from the different Buddhist traditions, not just the Tibetan one. So we just had a lot from the Chinese. The next section about taming the 5 hindrances, this is from the Pali tradition. Okay. So, yeah, when we're meditating on our object of meditation, if an affliction comes very strongly, if an affliction rises, like I said before, catch it when it's small, bring our mind back. But if it keeps on arising and we really can't control our mind, then we have to temporarily put our stabilizing meditation aside and develop an antidote or a counterforce that will rebalance our mind. And so that may involve thinking about some other topics to rebalance the mind. Okay? So this is one antidote, is to pay attention for a virtuous object. Okay? So precisely contemplate the opposite of the distracting thought or emotion. Yeah, because so many of our distracting thoughts and emotions are non-virtuous. Yeah. So if we're attached to material possessions, the remedy is to contemplate impermanence. Yeah, whatever we have is in the process of disintegrating. Yeah, it's not going to last forever. So just be prepared. Don't hold on to it. For sexual desire, contemplate parts of the body. So there's a beautiful meditation in Shantideva's book, Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, or Engaging in the Bodhisattva's Deeds, chapter 8. And it's basically the same meditation that's done in the Chinese tradition, also the Pali tradition, where you mentally dissect the body and you look at what it really is inside this sack of skin that you think is so desirable that you want to hug. Okay? And it works if you do it, this meditation. For anger, hatred, and resentment towards sentient beings, contemplate love. Okay? Wishing them to be have happiness in its causes. For anger at inanimate things, like your computer, although don't you feel like sometimes your computer is deliberately trying to get you? You know, it knows when you're in a hurry and it breaks just at that time, you know? And it deletes the file that you've been working on, or it doesn't save the changes. Yeah. I'm convinced my computer is not inanimate because I get all these problems. And when I call Venerable Jigme to come and help me, the computer works for her. It doesn't work for me. I call her, she comes up, and it works fine. So I think my computer is not an inanimate object. It's out to get me. No, I'm joking. Yeah. Okay, so for anger at inanimate objects, contemplate their components. Okay, so earth, water, fire, air. Just break down whatever inanimate object you happen to be mad at. Yeah, your phone. Yeah, your computer, your car. What else do you get mad at? Yeah, I've worked at a research project in college, and we had to measure people's response times, and the machine sometime wouldn't work. And we kicked it. And it worked. Okay. We couldn't kick it too hard because we didn't want to break it. But it did work if we kicked it. But anyway, that's before I knew this antidote, which is analyze the parts of whatever it is, okay? Yeah, it opens the mind. For aversion to situations, yeah, you're in a situation that you don't want to be in. I remember on 9/11, that was one of my biggest feelings is, I don't want to be in the middle of a world conflict. Yeah. If these two sides don't agree, why don't the leaders get in a sandbox like two little boys and fight it out and leave the rest of us alone? Okay? So you're in a situation, because sometimes we are dragged into situations that we don't want to be in. No way. And yet there's no way to get out of it. Yeah. Okay. So for being in those situations, the antidote is to contemplate that they are the result of our previous karma and of circumstances that we don't have control over in this life. And so accept what's happening. If there's a way to get out of the situation, get out. If there's a way to change the situation, change it. But if there's no way, then accept it and make peace with it. For intellectual doubt about the Dharma teachings, the antidote is to study the teachings. For emotional doubt, when your mind is topsy-turvy emotionally, contemplate the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Okay. This may sound very strange, How is that going to calm my mind down when I'm full of doubt? Well, I've been working on volume 6. This is volume 4 here. And in volume 6, there's a whole section about the 10 bodhisattva grounds and what those bodhisattvas practice and what they're capable of doing as they progress on the path and get closer and closer and closer to full awakening. And I can tell you, when I was working on that part of the book, my mind was very happy and very peaceful. Yeah, because when you think of other beings' virtuous qualities, we're actually thinking about the goodness that is possible in this world. Yeah? And when we feel that goodness is possible, our mind settles down. Yeah? The doubt is subdued. So that's why this is a good antidote. Okay, then, this is an antidote for, it's general for different hindrances. Okay, so another one is to examine the danger and disadvantages of those distracting thoughts. Okay, so whatever your mind is busy ruminating about, okay, contemplate what's going to be the result of letting my mind ruminate about this kind of stuff. Well, first of all, it's going to cause my own and others' suffering right now and also in the future. Okay, so when you're remembering what somebody did to you 15 years ago, and your mind's revved up about it, just remember, dwelling on this is causing me suffering. It is not happening now. It is absolutely not happening now. And so dwelling on it and letting my mind go like this, the result is only causing me suffering. And it'll make me so revved up that chances are I'll say or do something that will inflict suffering on somebody else. Okay. Another thing in terms of contemplating the danger and disadvantages of the distracting thoughts is to think that they obstruct our wisdom, they bring difficulties on the path, and they lead us away from nirvana. So here we are, our aim is non-abiding nirvana. We want to generate wisdom. But all these distracting thoughts are taking us in the opposite direction, aren't they? Yeah. Whenever our mind starts with, well, they did this and they did that, and then they did this and then they did that. Yeah. Is that way of thinking getting us any closer to our spiritual goals? No. And it's very dangerous to let our mind continue to ruminate like that because we don't come to a conclusion. We just get ourselves all worked up, make ourselves miserable and agitated, and then we take it out on the people around us. Okay, here's a good one to think in terms of thinking about the danger and disadvantages of distracting thoughts. To think that they're like the carcass of a snake, a dog, or a human being hanging around your neck. They weigh you down. It's true, isn't it? Letting our mind spin just weighs us down. Yeah. So some of these, imaginative things, you have a big python dead on your neck. Yeah. Or you have a big dog, or you have a human being, or you have a horse. Yeah, a dead carcass, because that's what these thoughts are like. They're like dead carcasses. Yeah. And I'm walking around with this around my neck, and I'm not doing anything to put it down. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes these images, they work well, don't they? It's like, ugh, I don't want to walk around like that. It is really time for me to put this down. Okay. Then another way, another kind of antidote is to not give any attention to those thoughts, to ignore them. Okay, so this resembles turning our head away from something that we don't want to see. It's also every parent. How many of you are parents? Okay, when you had a crying baby, yeah, what works to calm your baby down aside from holding it like this? You take it in another room, or you take it outside. You take it in a different environment. The air feels different. The sound is different. The baby stops crying. Yeah, have you noticed that with little kids? You distract the child. You distract them. So in the same way, yeah, when it says here to ignore those thoughts, it's you don't let your mind go to that. You do something else. You clean your room. Something that you've been putting off for 3 countless great eons. You now do it. Okay? You clean your room. You scrub the toilet. You go for a long walk. You do a painting, okay? You play badminton with yourself. Who knows? You just do something else. Yeah. You go and make some pizza. Yeah. Okay? You don't eat it all. You just make it and then give it to other people. Okay. So, in other words, you take your mind off whatever thought it is that you're uncontrollably stuck on. Okay. Then another antidote for distracting thoughts is to examine the formation of these thoughts. Okay. So, for example, to ask yourself, why am I thinking this? What are the factors that led to this thought or emotion coming into my mind? Yeah. So, like I said, you're sitting there meditating. You remember what your brother or sister did to you, on your birthday when you were 8 years old. You're getting furious. And you stop and think, why am I thinking this? What made this thought arise? What made this anger arise at this moment? This is not something I think about regularly. At least I hope we don't think about this regularly, So what made that thought come right now? Yeah, very interesting to investigate this. Very, very interesting. Okay. Or another way to deal with that is you step back and you think of yourself as an impartial observer and you watch the thoughts flow by. You watch the emotion arise and cease. Okay. This sounds very easy. Oh, I'm just stopping and watching it. Because we are so attached to our thoughts and our feelings, as soon as we start, having an emotion or having a thought, boy, our mind gets glommed onto it. So what can be very useful is you think, this is somebody else's thought. Okay? It's kind of like, and we do this during retreats sometimes, thinking about somebody else's problem. Yeah, because in retreats, often our mind gets stuck thinking about our own problem, round and around and around. Yeah, we do this thing where you write your problem down, you put it in the middle of a circle. Everybody in the retreat picks a problem that isn't theirs. And then when you get distracted in your meditation, you make yourself ruminate about the other person's problem. It is so boring. Yeah? And it makes us wonder, why is my problem so enticing, but their problem is so stupid and boring? Yeah, it really works. Yeah, so do that regarding your own problems and your own distractions. Just step back and it's like, think like this is somebody who's coming and talking to you and, belly aching about their problem. And, you have to sit there and listen to it. Yeah. And it's just like, can you be quiet already? It's really not so big and it's not so interesting and you can solve it yourself. Please leave me alone. And then you go back to your meditation object. Yeah? Okay, so those are some of the antidotes that are proposed for dealing with distracting thoughts. Okay. So there's a couple of minutes for questions if people have any.
You were mentioning meditating with objects that are internal, like the breath or visualization. Mm-hmm. Is there a reason why external objects aren't as...
Yeah, because if you're just staring at a candle, that's done with your visual consciousness. Yeah, and that it's not your visual consciousness that develops concentration. It's got to be your mental consciousness that does. Because when you really want to meditate on something important, to integrate it with your mind, it's always an internal thing that you need to contemplate. If you want to develop compassion, what are you going to stare at to familiarize your mind with compassion? It's got to be something that you build up inside and then focus on. So that's why we always, when we're developing serenity, focus on an internal object.
Does the idea of changing one's attitude, particularly about a person you have aversion with, are these teachings presuming that this is going to take a lot of time? I mean, this is something you have to do that purification over and over and over.
Yeah, it depends how strongly you're stuck on something. And, if you've been developing a lot of aversion for somebody over a long period of time, it's going to require a lot of habituation. Remember, what were the 2 words I told you the first day to remember? Repeated practice.
How can you investigate whether the repeated practice of purification is having an impact on past karma? How can you investigate that if you do those practices over and over? How do you?
So how do you tell that your purification is working?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, in the text, what? Oh, yeah.
This is an example of doubt, but also following teachers' advice.
Okay. So in the text, they say that, you have auspicious dreams, like you're flying in the sky and things like that. But I think on a more grounded level, your mind is clear. You're less confused. When you hear teachings, you understand them better than you understood them before. Your mind is calmer and more agreeable to meditation and to dealing with all these people. Okay? So you see a change in your mind. You're not so resistant to the teachings or to getting to the cushion.
I just would comment that as the years go by, I think your practice, if you're doing it every day, you can make it better and better, and you decide to do more things. Mm-hmm. And so finally this year, I made the commitment to get those 35 Buddhas done every morning, Mm-hmm. And it's hard because, sometimes you get up and you're like, oh man, I'm too tired to do prostrations now, but you do it.
Yeah.
And it is hard to know what you did in the past, obviously, in past lives. But I would just say, to answer Cliff, that every time I do an increment in Dharma practice, all of a sudden a lot of good things happen. And that's not to say that bad things don't still happen. Bad things happen all the time. Mm-hmm. Things always don't go your way all the time. But it's how you react to them that changes. And the other thing is I totally agree that a lot of times when good things happen, we just want more. But coming here, often I'm like, okay, yeah, there's good things happening, but there's some bad knocking on the door here pretty soon. So
there's some bad what?
There's bad knocking on the door.
Oh, yeah.
There's always bad knocking on the door. There's no way there isn't. So I think you just have to, when good things come, you appreciate, but then you keep purifying. So that's, I see a direct effect when I purify is what I'm saying.
But if you have expectations when you purify that something good will happen, then forget it. That's not how it works. Okay? Because sometimes when you purify, it helps the negative karma ripen more quickly. Yeah. Okay.